Y'all, what is going on? Adam Milstead here, coming to you from the lab, aka the garage. And I want to talk to you about spooling up your reel the correct way, the do's and the don'ts. There's a lot of factors to take in effect whenever you are spooling up your reel for the first time in the season. And this video might help those who have had some pain and aggravation whenever you get out to the water and you cast your rod for the first time and you get that awful bird's nest. Well, I'm here to help with a couple tricks that might help you avoid that pain and aggravation on this week's Tackle Tip of the Week. All right, guys, so like I said, we're gonna go ahead and work on the correct way to spool up our reels. The bait casters, the spinning reels, it doesn't matter. There's a lot of factors to take in to help avoid those nasty backlashes and nasty bird nests that we might get out on the water. Now, the first factor and probably the most important tip I can give you that we've all fallen victim to, whether or not we're avid fishermen or brand new fishermen, is being patient. I know, guys, it seems real cliche, but when we don't take our time, we're nicking our flurocarbon, we're getting wind knots in our braid, it's not sitting right. There's been plenty of times I've done that, come home from work, spooled up a brand new reel, gone out to the water and casted. Very first cast, I get this nasty bird's nest. It sucks, but it was because I didn't take my time. I wasn't patient enough. So guys, we can avoid a lot of those situations just by following that first tip. Take your time and be patient. Now, we're gonna go over to the table. We're gonna work on two reels. I got a bait caster and I've got a spinning reel that I need to spool up. And I'm gonna show you for each one what you're supposed to do and my way to help avoid those nasty situations. Let's go check her out. So I've got two reels here. I've got a bait casting reel and I got a spinning reel. I got the best of both worlds and they still have their old line that needs to come off, obviously. But before I do that, I'm gonna give you your second tip. And generally this tip will solve about 80% of those backlashes and bird's nests that we get out on the water. And it involves the orientation of this line and how it comes off of this spool to whatever reel I'm using and how it goes on. Kind of complicated for me to describe, so I'm going to put it here really simple for you guys to understand. If I am spooling up a bait casting reel, this line needs to be coming off of this spool from the top. And if I'm spooling up a spinning reel, then this line needs to be coming from the bottom. Really important to remember, guys, because it's the way that this line has adapted and learned from the manufacturing, being packaged up and sitting on a shelf for about 6 months before you bought it. It has learned to sit on this spool in a particular way. So when I take this line off, guys, you can see that there's a natural curve to it. And this natural curve, if you go against it, will cause the line to spring away from your reel and it won't sit nicely. And that'll cause bird's nest and backlashes. So it's really important that if I'm using a bait caster, again, that this line is coming from the top, because the way that the bait caster rotates will adhere to the same position that this line is sitting on this spool. Same thing with a spinning reel. Spinning reel needs to come from the bottom because the way the spinning reel rotates, it adheres to the same way that this line has been sitting on this spool for the last 6 months. And that will help solve about 80% of those problems. Then we're gonna get into tip number 3. Whenever I am spooling up brand new line to my reel, what I wanna do is, and this is really simple, I know there's a ton of different gadgets out there that'll help make this easier, but there's a lot of flaws in those gadgets and a lot of them don't really make sense. They got ones that sit on the end of the rod and spin and twirl and do all this stuff. There's too many variables that could affect it, especially when you get into fluorocarbon. That fluorocarbon has a lot of memory sitting on that reel. But a simple screwdriver or a pen and a buddy, maybe a wife, maybe, where they'll sit there and they'll hold this and somebody at the other end has the rod and reel and you're spooling it up that way. Really important to remember, guys, this is tip number 3, to keep tension at both points, not just one point, both points. So if somebody's sitting here holding this like this, they need to keep tension here. Because what happens is if they lose tension, You stop spinning that reel on that side, that line gets wrapped up. It'll keep spinning, and eventually you'll get line will wrap around itself. You'll create a wind knot. You'll screw something up. It's just a variable you don't need to have. But most importantly is when I'm sitting at this end, what I like to do is I like to have a guide, and I put the line through the guide, and it connects here at the reel, and then I reel. But at the same time, I'm keeping tension here. So what I like to do is I like to hold the line here, reel here. So that line comes off, it has tension when it's coming off, and when it's going onto the reel, it's having tension so that it sits nicely. Again, having that line oriented the right way will sit that line nice, and me having that tension will be pretty much the same way this line has been sitting for the last 6 months after it came away from the manufacturer. So that is your tip number 3. Really important to keep line tension at both ends. The other tip that really has helped me out, and I think has created a little bit more longevity for my line, and this is no affiliation to straight Yak'd. I just want to give it some recognition, and this is, the label's kind of screwed up right now, but this is called reel snot. Now, I know some of you guys probably use this for other things, cleaning purposes, but this is great for line, for conditioning your line, guys. Condition your line. Number 4, condition your line. So what I do is I take a paper towel like this, and I'll spray, and I'm just use a lot of it. I spray a lot of that, and what I'll do is with the line that I'm holding with my hand here with tension, I'm reeling this on so that the line is going through this, through that line conditioner. It comes out and conditions the line. It'll also condition a little bit of the reel and the little bearings that are inside, especially on spinning reels. It's nice. It's great. It'll make that line sit nice and adhere well to the actual reel itself. And like I said, that'll create some longevity for your line, especially fluorocarbon. Guys, there are times where even if I've had old line on there sitting there for 5-6 months, what I'll do is I'll make really long casts in the yard. And I'll take this stuff and again, use a rag or a paper towel, and I'll hold that on that line and I'll run it through. And I'll do that about 5 or 6 different times until I condition the line, I clean the braid or I clean the fluorocarbon, and that'll again create a little longevity for your line. It might save you some money in the long run, but at the same time, it makes your line easier to cast and it just protects it better. So we're gonna actually start now, and we're gonna go ahead and spool up the line. The last thing, and this isn't really anything that you guys have to do. Like I said, you can use the buddy system. You can even make something on the wall to sit there, but I created this little jig. And what I do with this little jig is I'll actually take some of these clamps for, you know, woodworking and things like this, and I'll put it on a table, clamp that down, and I'll be able to actually use this to spool up my reels. And you'll see firsthand here what I do. So let's spool up. We're gonna start with the bait caster. Okay guys, so here it is. This is my jig that I have for spooling my reels up. This is the spring. It's already compressed by this wing nut, and this little wood clamp here is actually just kind of holding that wing nut from spinning off. Anyways, as you can see, I've got the line spooled up and it's coming off from the top, which means that I'm going to be spooling up my bait caster. All right, so really important to remember, again, if I'm coming from the top off, I'm spooling up my bait caster. If I'm coming from the bottom, which means I'm spooling up my spinning reel. Let's just do a live action scenario on what I do, and then that'll be it. Condition your cloth. Really important. All right, I've got tension at the jig. I've got tension here at the reel. All right, we're all done, at least with the bait caster. All right, there we go. The reel's all spooled up. Let's go get started on a spinning reel real quick. All right, guys, here we are one more time on a jig. Got tension, and this time the line's coming from the bottom, which means we're going to be using the spinning reel. Again, take your reel snot, go ahead, soak your rag or your paper towel. Get your tension on both ends and start reeling. Take your time, doesn't have to be fast. Okay guys, there it is. The reel is all spooled up and I'm ready to fish. All right guys, so that's pretty much it in a nutshell. It's a big nutshell because there's a lot of factors that take in, but it doesn't matter whether you're using a spinning rod, bait casting rod, or if you're using braid or fluorocarbon, especially fluorocarbon. It's really important to follow these steps. But if there's one thing that you do take from this video, make sure that you just take your time and be patient, guys. That'll solve a lot of issues for you when you're out on the water. So thanks again for watching. If you guys wouldn't mind, go ahead and hit the like and subscribe button down below. Hit that little bell thingy too and get notified whenever I post a new video. So thanks for watching this week's Straight Yak'd Tackle Tip of the Week.